Now, the use of the death penalty is increasing around the world. The number of people executed in 2022 spiked to its highest level in 5 years. That's according to the human rights organisation Amnesty International. The group's annual report on the use of capital punishment found China continues to execute thousands of its citizens every year, though authorities don't disclose official data. The second worst offender was Iran. Authorities there executed 576 people. That's up more than 80% on the previous year. Saudi Arabia was third with 196 executions. That's a 200% rise. And Amnesty also noted a significant increase in the number of death sentences carried out for drug-related crimes, a violation of international human rights law. Now, despite that, Amnesty also praised some progress away from the death penalty, with these 6 countries fully or partially abolishing capital punishment. And we can take a closer look at those numbers with Chiara San Giorgio. She's a Amnesty International's death penalty advisor and a co-author of that last report. Welcome to DW. I'd like to start with the situation in China. We've heard the country is believed to carry out more executions than all other countries combined, but for years it's been impossible to gather accurate information. Tell us why that is.
Thank you so much for having me today. Yes, China remains the lead world executioner, but because of the secrecy that surrounds the data on the death penalty, it is impossible for us to put forward an accurate figure that would accurately portray a picture of the death penalty there. We see, based on our monitoring, that the death penalty continues to be used extensively. It's retained on the books for more than 40 crimes. And we have noted, in particular, the use of the death penalty for drug-related offenses, or last year, an increase in the number of death sentences imposed for corruption. The authorities have repeatedly claimed in the past that they have reduced their use of the death penalty, but without access to information and the ability to enter the country and verify the information for ourselves, it's impossible to say if those claims match to the reality. We still believe thousands of people continue to be executed.
OK. Now, countries like Iran are well known for executing political prisoners or dissidents. What are the most common offences that carry a death sentence in China?
For China, we have the majority of the death sentences being imposed for murder and drug-related offences, which is a violation of international law. We have no number for that, but we have seen official confirmation of the sentences being given, for instance, by the Supreme People's Court in campaigns, drives to show to lower courts, for example, that some cases are well deserving of the death penalty, even if it was just for drug trafficking or drug-related offences.
Mm-hmm. Is there any move at all in China? Do you see any move at all to abolish the death penalty or at least limit its use?
It is very difficult to say in the absence of official figures that we can corroborate. We have seen an effort to improve safeguards when it comes to, for example, improving the presence and the ability of defense lawyers to argue the case in court, or further reforms from the Supreme People's Court to make sure that the safeguards in trials conducted by lower courts are strengthened. But to say that we see from this basis of this to see that we see an improvement towards abolition, it's really hard to make that claim. It's really hard to say. We call on China to immediately establish a moratorium on executions and start becoming transparent on the use of the death penalty.
Let's zoom out for a moment, take a look at the bigger picture. Why are we seeing this major global rise in executions, and why in particular now?
So, as you mentioned in the beginning, we saw 2 countries being primarily the drivers of the increase of executions that we recorded last year. We had Iran increasing its use of the death penalty, both for murder, but quite significantly for drugs, and it is something that we did not see in recent years. There's been a sudden uptake in the death penalty for drugs, and that kind of made up the bulk of the global executions that we recorded for drug trafficking. And similarly, Saudi Arabia, we saw an increasing number of executions for terrorism. We saw last year 81 people being executed in one day in March, half of them belonging to the Shia religious minority. And we also saw for the first time last year in Saudi Arabia the resumption of executions for drug-related offences when we were told from the authorities that there was a sort of moratorium in place for those offences. So it's still a long way to go. Last year, these two countries really showed a regression, but the picture overall globally was quite mixed because we also had some good news on abolition.
All right. Amnesty International's Chiara Sangiorgio, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.